Hey, everybody, we're here for a new episode of RLG Cast Reviews. Putty's doing some stuff he shouldn't be doing, and we're talking about Spider-Man, The Friendly Neighborhood, Spider-Man
You got
animated
it
series
right
show
afterwards.
on Disney Plus. Hey, so we're gonna review this show. I don't think I'm gonna do spoiler free. We might, who knows? We'll see. Putty, tell them what happens.
It's a show about Spider-Man, but a different way to tell Spider-Man as a kid, as a teenager, a different version, with not a girlfriend, except a girl that he does want to be his friend, and then a friend that is a girl that is also another character from another series of comic books, and so on, and other characters that you may not be familiar with. Is that a good synopsis?
I think your synopsis was very Snapple. Um,
Yeah.
so let's talk a little bit about it here. I immediately have to say, I liked the art style a lot. I really
Mhm.
didn't like the animation.
Really?
I hate the way they moved. I hate that stupid 3D anime style. It drives me nuts. I just draw things on paper.
Well,
I
is it
hate
just
it.
me? Well, is it just me? But it feels like in the beginning, the first few episodes, it was very stiff. But then all of a sudden, the animation got better to me.
In the
Like
first
on,
episode, it was very different for sure.
yeah,
I don't
and
know
see,
first couple, but for sure the first episode was looked
yeah,
completely different.
because later on, I'll be honest with you, the animation, because I'll be right there with you when I first watched it. Especially there's a scene with Peter Parker and Aunt May in the car, and I was like, this just does not look right. You know what I mean? But then later, when there's some fight scenes later with I guess a character that I don't know if we're doing spoiler free at this moment. I think you
Okay, we'll
said
do
doesn't
spoiler
matter.
free. We'll just do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, but there's a character he fights with that he actually struggles with later on. And that was a smooth animation. Like it was very, very smooth, very nice. So I don't know if maybe something happened in the animation board or if that was done on purpose. So I agree with you, but in a sense that I feel like it was just the first few episodes. And maybe it was a sense of it bothered me until I got used to it, and then it didn't seem so bad. So maybe I have to look at a different sense and like watch a later episode again later and see if it still has a stiffness the first one did.
I don't know. The the fight scenes looked okay basically across the board.
Yeah.
It's more so the way that they move when they're just like on
And dialogue.
just like any other scenes.
Yeah.
I think that like I said, I think the art style is good. It reminds me of like the comic book.
Yeah. Yeah.
It kind of has a good cross between like the modern comic and like the vintage. The first episode is very much leaning into like 60s style Spider-Man, which feels I think I agree with you for sure. That first episode feels way different than whatever else you get.
It might even be costume wise because I know in the trailer they show a second costume, and so I that first costume it's very prominent in the trailer, so it's not spoilers if you've seen the trailer. But I like the idea of the first costume. I think that causes some of the jankiness too. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but the actual like color, the actual like design was very very beautiful and very. I like the new styles they went with some of the stuff until one point in the show, but I guarantee you they did that on purpose just so you don't like the costumes. You know what I mean? But
Eh, So like I the what about the voice acting? Like the voice acting was good, I think. I think there was an overuse of gender and race swaps.
yeah.
Like I'm okay with a lot of it, but like it's sometimes it's just like you didn't need to do that many people.
Yeah, I agree.
And
Yeah.
there's like three new characters that have never existed before.
Mm-mm.
And stuff along those lines for a show as it progresses, I do think it got better. I really don't like the first three episodes. Like I was ready to just not even finish watching this
Yeah, I
after the
agree. I
first three
agree.
episodes. I thought they were not just not good, they were flat bad. Um, and then it does slowly get better, but there's a really weird tone that it has where it's kind of darker, almost in like a Batman the Animated Series style, where
Right.
it's like trying to tell real stories and like serious stories, but then it doesn't go far enough. Like there's a lot of gang
Yeah.
stuff that happens, but just we're expected to believe that not one person in any of these gangs had a gun. Like they were all just like, we're just gonna be 100
Well,
on 100 man fight.
Well, remember that doesn't really happen at one point though. Remember there is one point, but it's like, but yeah, it's one of those things where it's like at one point they do have that mechanic, if you remember what scene I'm referring to. But then the rest of the time it's like, okay, we're gonna battle it out now. Did anybody bring a gun? No, but I brought a knife. Oh no, this is vicious. But then all of a sudden we have another scene where there are guns involved, and I'm like, okay, this was a little bit weird the way things were set up and everything. And like for example, there's a shock value point in there where they do something to a guy and it's supposed to create a shocking moment, but then they go into really a actual shocking moment. So like why did they disguise that moment? And I feel like I have to go into spoilers to explain what I
Yeah, we
mean by
will.
that.
We'll go into spoilers pretty quickly. I think. You want to just give a score here for the spoiler free?
I actually really enjoyed this, but I agree with you. It was like the first two, maybe three. I got to look back and think how long those three, because I was looking at the time frame of the three. So if I were to give it a number, I would say the first three would maybe have a six. But then honestly, later on, it gave me an eight. Like everything else gave me an eight. So I guess even at like 7.5, I'll still say eight just to be nice.
Yeah, I'll give it like a 7.3. I think I might get a 7.3, 7.2 maybe somewhere in that zone. It's a good show overall, but I
Hmm.
think it really struggles to get going. And then it has a lot of gaps where it doesn't seem like it's sure what to do. There's entire storylines that don't feel necessary. So we're gonna go
Hmm.
into spoilers right now, and like the most unnecessary storyline for me is the Tombstone storyline.
Yeah,
It
I agree.
doesn't serve any relevance to what's happening with Peter Parker.
Nope.
It's an entire third of this show is dedicated to establishing the character Tombstone, who is
Hmm.
not a big character in any Spider-Man show or
Hmm.
the movies or the comic books,
Hmm.
but we've dedicated one third of this 10 episode series to developing this character. And the storyline he's part of doesn't even make sense 90% of the time. He
And it's
he can't escape the gang because
of his, yeah,
no
because
no
his family.
because
Well,
they don't explain
yeah.
anything to you. He just
Well,
can't go. He could just say, "All
well,
right, guys, I'm not coming." I want to understand. I want someone to explain to me the reason why a 50-year-old gangster running a gang
mhm,
with adults needed the help of one child
mhm.
to win a gang fight. He sent away two important pieces of his gang that he needed for the fight to pick up a child at school and bring them to the gang fight.
Well, the funny thing
Explain.
is, well, okay. I'm going to say this. There's one thing I noticed, and this is going back. First off, with that character, they could have made him Flash and Flash Thompson and had him dating the girl, and then just have him there. They didn't have to actually have him whole story. There, you still would have been a football star. That would have been all there. The idea that I got, and they explain it, is the big boss says, was it Dawn or something like that, says that the Scorpions know about your parents, and your parents are in danger unless you're with us to protect you. That's why he
Yes.
stuck around.
Now let's
Yeah,
start again with what you've said. Why does a gang of adult men need
me and a
a
kid.
high school
Yeah,
boy, one of them, well, just
yeah.
one singular, not him and all his friends, one guy?
Yeah.
Explain. Because they
Oh no,
don't.
yeah, no, that I don't explain. And see, here's going back to the thing you said before when it comes to the gang situation. We had all those fights with fist to fist and everything, and then of course the one girl with the knife, and then the Scorpion tried to stab the Don, but the high school kid saved him. I can't. This Tombstone saved him. What do you call him? Tombstone. I can't remember his real name. And and the funny thing is, as you said, there's no guns. But remember, literally the Scorpion scene when he finally gets the Scorpion suit, he comes in and they pull the guns on him. Well, here's the funny part, and this is the part I was talking about how they do the shock value, but then the shock value is like, why did you do that? Like, okay, so they showed their first kill. Scorpion kills somebody and stabs them, but they do it kind of off screen where you see it hit somebody, like you see it go towards somebody, but then they just show the tail go down and cut off the screen. Then all of a sudden, we see him brutally beating up a child, Peter Parker, and there's literally blood and everything and stabbing and everything in the blood, but you couldn't show him stab the other guy. Like, I don't understand the concept of like, oh, we'll put
That's
violence here, but then we're going to cut
that's
this
the
violence
downfall
here.
of this show. There's so many things that happen completely out of the realm of logic. Like it
Yeah,
felt like
yeah.
there's so much included in here just because they felt like they had to, and it doesn't make any sense. There's too many
Exactly.
villains. There's too many starting storylines. There's completely unnecessary side storylines. This whole
Yep.
season could have been based around the Doctor Octopus
Mm-hmm.
doing his thing with selling the weapons to like the Russian girl at first and then whoever down the road. You could introduce the gangs. They don't have to be a big part of it. He's selling them stuff that leads to a second season where it's more about Scorpion and them.
Mm-hmm.
And then you could have had it's basically a war between Osborn and Octavius. And
Which, by
Spider-Man
the
is like his pawn against them.
and by the way, can I say this? This is I don't know if Mark Hamill did the voice. It sounds like Mark Hamill's doing the voice of Doc Ock kind of in that. But I want to say this. This is my favorite Doc Ock animated version ever. It feels so spot on to the old comic books as far as like the voice, the character, the behavior, even the look. Oh my God, the look of this Doc Ock was so spot on that every time they had the Ock on the screen, Dr. Octavius, I was like, I love this character. It's probably my favorite character in the whole series, as literally Dr. Octavius, and I feel like they did it perfectly. And it feels like the Joker from the first animated series. It feels like this is finally their Joker to that, and that's the reason why I guess maybe I heard Mark Hamill's voice in him because it
It's
just
some guy called Hugh Dancy.
well he had a close Mark Hamill type voice, like you could hear it, like it
I
sounds
don't
like
know.
it,
I
and
never thought it would sound like Mark
I
Hamill, but
did, I did, I
that's
did.
fair.
Like, but my point is, this Doc Ock was amazing, and I wish that I hope I'm guaranteed. It looks like they're going to focus more on Doc Ock based on how the ending is. Um, I will say with this show, I do like the twist ending because I was a little bit confused when Doctor Strange was like, "What are you all talking about? I was never there." But then all of a sudden, the whole time thing happens and he goes back. I like that loop, but then there's also a plot hole of like, well, if Peter Parker didn't get bit by the spider, that means that they would have extracted it and put it into the other spider to which then bite him. Like there's a paradox in this situation with this whole loop with the spider going through biting Peter Parker, and then they pull that stuff from Peter Parker to make the spider, which kind of defeats the purpose of that never existing in the first place. You see what I'm saying? Like it's a
Yeah,
weird
I don't
plot
know.
hole.
Like I said, this is not like one of the best Spider-Man shows ever. It starts off very weak. It progressively gets better, but it's still just like watchable.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. I still enjoyed it. It was made by the people who made X-Men '97, and I feel like they're on a good path. But the problem is they forced it, and people talked online, and I see it now. They forced too much of the woke movement in this situation, and I think that's what's happened
I'm not
here.
even going to use that term, but
Yeah,
I think they didn't need to have as many race and gender swaps and combining some of those things because it doesn't bother me that you've done it, but like how how many people did you have to change?
yeah.
At
Now
what
I will
point or is
say,
it like just like okay, are we just going to change everybody?
right? Well, here's my thing. Like for example, let's use Nico. Nico is like her character. I love Nico, but Nico was never part of this. She was a Runaways character. So, like, why is she part of Spider-Man? Was she in the comics and I never realized it?
I didn't even know who she was, so you're telling me news.
Okay, so yeah, the girl Nico in there, for those that don't know, if you go watch the Runaway series, you can literally see it. And she's the one that has the witch powers. And I was like, this must be that Nico. And then at the end, that pays off when she talks to her mother by using witchcraft. So it is the Nico from that. So I'm like, but why are we using this Nico? It feels like they're forcing again. You
Because
said like
they're the way they'll probably introduce Runaways into the modern era is going to be through animated series or something. Because they're
you're
not
probably right.
characters they'll ever use in like the live action movies.
And I think Nico's the most popular Runaways character, so I think that's why they started pushing her as a Spider-Man character
Yeah.
because she is the most
We
popular in
get
that series.
cameos, we get Iron Man, we get Doctor Strange, we get
Yep.
what's his face?
Kind of Captain America through pictures and that kind of
Kind
thing. You know
of.
what I mean?
Who's the
We,
guy at the
Dare,
beginning? Daredevil.
well, we got Daredevil.
Daredevil is to me where the show started getting good,
Yeah,
which
I
is I think
agree. I
episode
agree.
5.
And they did a good job on Daredevil too. I liked the way Daredevil was presented. Like the best ones, as again, is Doctor Octavius, Daredevil. Those two were presented nicely. I
I
will say
liked
that.
I liked I liked how they did Osborn. I thought he was really good, and it's Coleman Domingo does the voice, and he's a really good actor. So I thought Norman Osborn was really good.
I agree. I agree. I
You
agree.
can never tell whether he's being sincere or if he's like using Peter or
but we all know he is. Norman is a manipulative character, and I mean, I once I saw the glider, I was like, okay, we're leading into this. I thought we were gonna actually. I liked the bait and switch they did. Like I thought they were actually bringing Goblin in, but they just brought the glider in to save
I think
Peter.
you should hold that for a
Yeah, I agree.
while. In season 2, if you're going to introduce someone, introduce Hobgoblin, where Norman hires someone to do the glider thing, and then goes, "If you want to do it, you got to do it yourself," and then comes back in
Yeah,
season
exactly.
3 as
Yeah, yeah.
the main villain, right?
So how did you feel about Dr. Connor's gender swap?
It's it was it's weird.
Yeah, yeah. Like another thing is what's your name from Wakanda? Black Panther's sister. Having that implied there too, like you could tell they're trying to force way too much of other universes and using Spider-Man as a
Yeah,
pedestal for that.
and it's really weird too that a lot of the references are specifically from the MCU. When they show the Civil War event, it's literally
Yeah,
the MCU Civil War. So it's weird that this has nothing to do with the MCU, but yet you're shoehorning so much stuff in, and the people are doing their own voice acting, right? Like it's actually uh Charlie Cox that does Daredevil and so on and
yeah,
so
yeah.
forth. It just feels too on the nose.
Right. But see, that's the other thing too. That's a little bit confusing too, because like the Sokovia Accords are mentioned in there, the fight between Ultron, and then they even show the airport scene that was in Civil War, which Spider-Man was involved with. So like, does that change that scene? Because I mean, Spider-Man had an integral part kind of in that whole situation, especially when it came to battling like Ant-Man and tripping him up when he was big. So like, if that doesn't happen, does that change the fight scenario? Like, yeah, there's so many variables I put in my head in those parts that it took me out of the show. But then, of course, I had to something would happen. I go, okay, I'm back into it. But it still kind of takes you out of it because this is an alternate universe, I guess, is what we're looking at it. But like for example, the symbiotes, the whole use of the symbiotes is fine. But now the way they brought in like the symbiote liquid and Norman Osborn finds it's so different from what they had before. And I know they're trying to find something different, but now I'm like, how are they going to introduce Eddie Brock and have him have it first, just like they did in the whole MCU situation because of Sony's ownership? Like, are we trying to change the stories so that they can fit them to the MCU? Because that's what it feels like sometimes with these shows. They want to find a way to get us interested in these characters in their own way, so they can find a way to curb the actual movies into what they already made. And it's like, well, then you're already ditching what we loved about the original stuff and what made them great. And I don't mind changes. It's good. It makes it interesting for new people, for people like me and you that have read the comic books and watched the old cartoons. But you can do it in a way that doesn't totally ignore what was all there. Like the whole origin story of Spider-Man, I liked it. I liked him having the pack on the back where he had to turn it. Things like that are
Oh yeah,
okay.
so here
But
let's talk about the suits because you were talking about the suits.
yeah, so throughout, I knew they were doing the same thing. They were trying to lead into the final suit being the final one, but all those stupid suits that no one was trying to make him wear, like there was no purpose to them. And he already picked up Peter as Spider-Man for what he already created. So why was he trying to constantly alter his designs to do something different when he already picked up Spider-Man for what he was doing good already and made already? You get what I'm
So
saying?
so.
And those suits are so stupid.
Okay, but do you know why? You know what the suits are? This is one thing
What?
you don't know. See, this is where I caught you off guard. They're I think it's an overdone situation because there's already too much going on in this show already. But
Right.
those suits are the suits that will be worn by superior foes of Spider-Man. The wingsuit is Beetle.
Oh,
The
okay,
the
that makes
the
sense
the scene with
now.
the mask is Boomerang, and then
Which
the
then
black suit
the
he's
black
wearing in
suit,
the
yeah,
office is Overdrive.
that makes sense now. But because well, the Beetle one was the one that really made sense to me now. So okay, I didn't think of it that way, and
But
I get
it's like
it.
it still feels like okay, it's a nice little nod for someone like me who that's one of my favorite comics ever.
Right,
But it's like you didn't need to put that in here, especially when nobody's gonna get that reference.
right.
Like it felt like why? It's already there's
Well,
so much happening in this show. It's such an oversaturated mess of like references and
well,
Easter eggs.
Well, prime example, you said yourself, you knew about why they did those. I knew about Nico. You had no idea about that. So I love that they're bringing in stuff
Right.
here and
And
there
but it's
that
still
like
like now me finding that out is like, oh my God, another thing. Do you know what I mean? Like
yeah, yeah, exactly.
it's like really we didn't need that. It's
Yeah, yeah,
fine.
and yeah, and again, I thought you knew Nico was a
I
Runaways
don't even know
character,
who
so it's
Nico
like,
is.
yeah, yeah.
I never read Runaways. I
I never
watched
did
the
either, but
show
I knew Nico
Runaways, but
show.
I don't remember Nico the character at all.
Yeah, I do. She was the Asian girl mom because I'm fighting her, and she had the staff,
Oh,
the
that's
whole
her?
magic staff. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah,
her.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's Nico, and that's the one they're doing there. And but they're doing the whole story of her mom being dead. Now I don't know if in the comic books her mom was actually dead. You know, if that was an actual storyline. But I mean, for me, yeah, it's something new. But was I invested in Nico as a character? Yeah. But you could have turned that into anybody else. You could have made that a black cat. What's her name? Not, I want to say Selena Kyle. It's not Selena Kyle. What's her name? That played Black Cat. The actual whatever.
Yeah, whatever. It
Anyway,
doesn't matter.
Felicia. You could have
Felicia
made that
Hardy.
Felicia. Yeah, you could have made that Felicia instead of Nico. But it's like what they're doing is they're shoehorning all these other things. And at least your situation with the whole beetle and all that, it makes sense to the whole storyline. But because it's Spider-Man, but Nico has nothing to do with Spider-Man. And so that's where I'm talking about. They're shoehorning all these other universes that might not be as well known to say, hey, when people are like, who's Nico? And now they'll look it up and be like, oh, I guess I have to read Runaways and realize, oh, it's not that great of a comic book. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the thing is I get where you're coming from. Overall, when it comes to if they would have taken out all this stuff, when it comes to like the simpleness of like Aunt May, Norman Osborn, even the relationship between Harry and Nico, which again could have been Felicia, could have still been and Felicia would have been perfect. She would have been more of like a goth girl. You know what I
I
mean?
agree with that, and I also think if you made it only 8 episodes and really minimize the gang stuff and let the gang
Hmm.
stuff spread out more over this season and the next season rather than doing it all right now, um, because you don't feel an emotional connection to that guy at all. It
No,
starts
at
off where
all.
they're establishing it, where Peter starts to kind of become friends with him, and Peter's like, "Holy shit, the cool guy wants to be friends with me." But then you completely break off that friendship, and it just goes in a different direction, and
And
you're
then
like, "Okay,
you try to pull heartstrings with the whole family thing, but it's the family
yeah."
thing is so thrusted
And
into the
his
storyline that there's no time to
Peter's
really feel for
romantic
him.
situation also doesn't make sense when you have the Nico girl who's like not like it's a cartoon, so it's weird to say it, but it's like not an unattractive girl
Yeah,
who he's best friends with, but he completely ignores her, but he likes the girl who's dating a guy already. Seems like a weird storyline to tell for a superhero. Like he shouldn't be trying to take someone else's girlfriend. And also, there's so many other girls that like Peter. Why is Peter so hung up on this one situation?
yeah.
It just that you didn't need to go there right away. You could have had that build up over time over the 2 seasons and told a better
Hmm.
storyline there. Anyways, I think that's all we're going to talk about. And thank you for watching. Let us know what you thought about the show in the comments below and tell Putty he's a goofy gopher.